Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter poison by which the physician...
Welcome, this is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau. And today's show, we're going to be talking about the consequences of not following humankind's natural law. Remember, this is the show that will take you a moment to wrap your heads around new thought, new thinking, new ideologies than you've been taught to think about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. As I stated, the consequences of not following natural divine law is actually what you see happening around the world today. The disregard for Earth, humankind, and all beings upon the earth throughout the cosmos is literally at one of its highest points today. Literally. This is the juxtaposition between the end of an old age we're just about to leave, and we are finally going to be graduating very shortly to a newer age of awareness, understanding, and stewardship to ourselves as humankind and to the earth herself as a viable part of the entire cosmos, which we are. It's so interesting to see people that are just earth-centric, that think, oh, nothing else exists but us. And hopefully a lot of us have gone past that unfortunate thinking that was always complex through left brain thinking only, and unfortunately always erroneous. When we think with our heart and our soul as we were intended, without suppression, we recognize and sense and feel all the qualities between humankind, between Earth and all her beings, all the species on the planet, if we open to that awareness. But remember, it's been purposely suppressed, purposely shut down by our brothers and sisters that do not know better. And this has been going on for eons through the earth. Those that feel that they are above or do not have to abide by divine, universal, or natural law. Unfortunately, they don't know better, because all they do and all that you see around us today is a consequence of that disregard, blatant, knowing disregard. So do you understand the position you choose as human today? There's no mistake that you chose to be born. Yes, I'm sorry. No belief nor theory on this show. It is real. Remember, I'm a hard and fast skeptic. I've been all my entire life. And anything you hear me say or espouse, especially on the air, the universe had to beat me over the head 50 million times over a serious amount of meticulous study and through great discernment, scientifically, geographically, metaphysically, spiritually, before even I would believe it or open my mouth with much proof and confirmation. So it's not just hearsay. It's not just conspiracy theory or somebody's thought or opinion. It's what's valid and real. And we must grasp what is valid and real for the rest of our entire lives on this planet. Now, humankind have been engaged from the cosmos, all souls, all connected, all one. And coming to the earth, we fall in disrepair every time we tend to get here. Every time we tend to fall away from the one. And that one is God creator, source, force, great father, great spirit. We are all one, beautiful individual souls that are all connected, interconnected on a soul level with these human experiences as we are in this body, in this earth experience we chose. But remember, exactly at this time. And that means you need to understand that you came here with a ton of ability, talent, and information that you promised to share for the greater good of yourself, for your greater soul growth and awareness that you're going to need through this next period. You won't be able to get through without it. It will not fit without it. So you're going to have to open your mind, yes, in your own way, yes, in your own time, no debate, no need. But that is the only way. That is the qualification for this newest age we are opening to. And Earth, in her 4.5 billion year history, has seen this many, many times. So she is ready. She is primed and showing you she's ready by all the major changes around the world that she's making and rapidly and exponentially expanding in her wake, physically. And the collective consciousness literally with the energies coming through cosmically, are not only affecting the Earth, they're affecting you and every human being, whether you know it, wanted to, or not. You are a part of this. So you can turn away and shun all this information, or you can open your mind, open your heart, open your soul to gather this greater detail for the benefit of many others. Today, as my guest, I am very happy and very honored to have with us the historian from the Algonquin First Nation, Willy Dick, who will go into more detail with us today about his background, how he came to this, and his thought on the subject matter. And there you are. Thank you. How are you today, Willy? Please introduce yourself and your background, please, if you don't mind, to our audience today.
Great, thank you. Miigwech. Kwe Willy Nadishan cause. My name is Willy. I'm a member of the Algonquin Sepikwakingan First Nation, which is the only federally recognized Algonquin First Nation in Ontario. And my grandparents on my mother's side are the ones that have the Algonquin ancestry. And so they actually used to be curators at the museum that I work at. And I work as the cultural resource officer. That's what I do, I should say. And yeah, I've been learning about my Algonquin history, and it's it's true history, the version that Canada never taught us growing up.
Excellent, excellent. And that's what we have to open now. This is a time, Willy, as you just stated, that Canada or the rest of the world did not know. This is the time, I'll let the audience know, that the veils are being pulled down so everybody can see what's the truth behind what we've been purported to be seeing as truth, the wall that's been hidden from us. And I thank you for stating that. With, especially since your grandparents literally ran the same museum that you now are curator or are historian of at this time. Excellent connection.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and I think that word that you're speaking of is called nescience.
Okay.
So NE science, or to be nescient, is whenever your the available information hasn't come across your path in order for you actually to know better. So most people, most Canadian citizens, I like to say, are have the stereotype for being so nice, right? And always saying sorry and whatnot. But if you look at the etymology of the word nice, it actually means, it comes from Latin, nescius and nescire, so to be ignorant and to be foolish.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, so
clarification.
in its origin, to be nice is to be ignorant or foolish. So I say that most Canadian citizens are ignorant of true Canadian history, and basically that they're ignorant of it, because we live in an age of information where you can search anything that you're curious about. It's a quest, right? And we have to question things for ourselves. And so what I've learned is that there's an objective truth between right and wrong, and that basically our actions have to align with that objective difference. In our behavior, we have to condone our behavior to walk the good path, which in Native language is called Minnow.
Okay. The interesting thing is people must realize or don't realize, and I'm going to share again a truth, that we have, as souls, have come here many, many times to the earth, trying to learn our experiences and our lessons in the highest way. And many of us have been in our past lives. This is actually exists. For those that are not aware, the soul continues through several bodies or different genders, as well as nationalities, every religion, and every culture. So many in the audience may not be Aboriginal at this time, but they were. And many in the Aboriginal culture today may not have been, or this could be their first time, another time, again coming, this great time of awakening, as well as those that perpetrated against. So it's a confluence, I'll call it, of all these souls that are trying to get this great look and what prevails today, Willy. And the other day in our light conversation, you gave me a brilliant breakdown of the word prevail. And what prevails today is a consequence of our actions, our thought, and our intentions, as you mentioned. So could you just share also that word meaning, please?
Yeah. So looking at language and really seeing the difference, because again, my father is non-Indigenous. So I see both polar opposites of English and Algonquin language, because Algonquin language is a polysynthetic language.
Mm-hmm.
It's long words made up of many root words. So that one word can explain a lot, but it's based upon nature for the most part. Also about moral teachings, how to survive off the land. And that information is passed on from generation to generation through an oral history. And so basically, when we look at our ancestors, they looked to the natural world as their greatest teacher, because they knew that nature had been operating in a state of perfection for millions of years. And all they had to do was incorporate those teachings into their culture, which is more of a philosophy based upon natural law, universal laws that exist, right, in nature,
Yes.
that govern nature, spiritual laws.
Yes.
And so they operated with the natural ebbs and flows of nature,
Mm-hmm.
and in balance with it. And they knew that everything was connected. They based everything on the premise that everything was connected. And so they saw their place in the world and how they were stewards of the land and territory that they occupied. And they were responsible for making sure that there was a balance. And so I've learned that that's what nature does. It balances itself out. It needs people to be courageous, and that's one of the 7 grandfather teachings is courage or bravery, and that we have to align our action with those spiritual laws. And so if you look at the etymology of the word natural, it comes from Egyptian nature, which is pronounced NTR,
Mm-hmm.
which to them meant God. And so for a First Nation individual myself, that I've been identified as the government through a status card. Again, just a status, a benefit and privilege that the government has to offer.
Correct.
Like a parent.
We already have divine status. We don't
That's
need the recognition from the governments. We
yes,
already recognize one another.
Our home, right? And homeless people, they should be just called houseless, because
Thank you.
Earth is our home. But basically, the light spectrum that we can perceive is infrared to ultraviolet, right? So infrared below and ultra meaning above. And
Yes.
so that very middle color is green, the balance color. And so if you look at nature in terms of vegetation on our Earth, what's the Earth's main color?
Green.
Green, exactly. So it's through synchromysticism, through observation, that connection, that we realize that it's the it's Mother Earth trying to love us.
May I add one more point about the green?
Yeah.
Many people may not know that the actual color emanating from the human heart chakra, that soul connection, is actually green.
That's right, and it's the middle of the 7 chakras. It's the heart
Yes.
chakra,
Yes.
and also, if you look at the word chakra, it means wheel or circle,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so the teaching of the sacred circle tells us that we are all born with the exact same inherent rights endowed upon us by the Creator, which are
Yes.
immutable. They're hermetically sealed, so nobody can bestow rights to someone or revoke rights, because again, we're all born with the exact same rights. So external authority doesn't exist in reality. It's
I'm going
merely
to
a belief.
say a point on that. I had studied a while back in my metaphysical studies, and they're very deep and very rich as a metaphysical spiritual teacher for over 40 years now. And what I found, Willy, was an interesting quality. All in man's previous great civilizations, many even more spiritually aware and more technologically advanced than today's current civilizations. Well, all of them were of the indigenous natures around the world, whether it be South America, whether it be Egypt, whether it be different continents elsewhere. They were all indigenous peoples and peoples of also color or pigmentation. And they were brilliant connections at that time to the cosmos. The Maya, the ancient Maya, were using how can I say it, an astronomical qualifications that are not even as actually our own today are not even as good and as clear. They moved the platform of the location of Venus 8 degrees when it changed. They were so aware of those qualities of the eclipses, the moon phases, and all this, and utilized them as they affected the world, the ancient ones. But that's not just there. From Asia, from everywhere in the world. And they kept incarnating, actually souls kept incarnating into those brilliant indigenous souls. There was one race at the time that wasn't progressing, and that was the race that came from the Caucasus Mountains. And that race of humankind was the Caucasian race. They were still, when everybody else had these advanced technologies, they were still running around in skins and on dirt floors without an awareness of what was going on without the greater cosmos. And so source, force, God, creator, all there is, said, you must, the souls, you must incarnate into this Caucasian race to lift them to match the level of the indigenous cultures that already exist and are evolving and progressing spiritually, mentally, and physically. And so slowly but surely, more souls said, okay, this time I will go into that Caucasian race. But what has followed is each race, once they become the top or the one that seems to be in control, they fall for the same problem: aggrandizement, greed, power. They fall for that. So each race has fallen by, how can I say it, its suppression of another. So in this day and time, we're coming about so we can all realize that we're all one, as you stated, and still connected to divine law, as you stated very well, very eloquently, that we've forgotten. We've forgotten that divine connection. And so as you stated, when you just said the governments have tried to let you know that you're supposed to exist, well, we already know, as you mentioned, from God Creator, this existence. But I just wanted to explain how this came about. So the current race that has been in charge for the last, in Western society in the last few hundred years that we're aware of, because history, as we know, is his story of who's in charge, is their version that is taught throughout the world, unfortunately, and their version of the current group in charge, and they were just as negligent as, believe it or not, that race had been before, in the fall for the power and the control and the domination. Yet again, the fall of mankind. We were supposed to connect spiritually to humankind and to the earth, which is the process that's happening now. And so I love the fact that you're giving people this knowledge, or sharing this knowledge today, so they can see that process wherever they live, not just in North America, because now the whole world needs to understand this. Many, many places of indigenous lands have been usurped, resources usurped, everybody dominating, suppressed, but this is worldwide. And that is never to happen on the earth, not ever again. So we are supposed to witness and see these things that have been going on. So we as souls will not ever allow it to happen on the planet ever again in this new age that we are opening to at this time. Wouldn't you agree?
I do agree. Yes, exactly. And it's individuals, the cause of suffering then be coming from those that try to usurp the laws of creation, right?
Correct.
Because they believe that basically they're above them.
Correct.
Exactly. And that in our First Nations culture, we teach our actions through the sweetgrass braid.
Yes.
And so basically, when you wear your hair in a braid, you keep that balance, that mentality of mind, body, and spirit. And you carry that with you, and in terms of everything that you do and your actions. And the three strands that make up the braid are each made up of 7 individual strands.
Oh, wow.
And so the first 7 represent our grandmothers and grandfathers of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Wow.
And the next 7 represent the 7 grandfather teachings. So it's basically a template for how one should live their life. And in terms of knowing the, say in Freemasonry or tarot, greater or lesser arcana. So
Yes.
arcana meaning knowledge, and greater knowledge being of how the cosmos works, and then how the nature of reality and how, in terms of our individual consciousness works, and then about marrying the two kind of thing, in the physical and the spiritual law, and balancing the two.
Okay, and you said it's braided, of course, into the 3.
Yes, and so the third 7 strands represent 7 generations in front of us. So our actions, shouldn't cause any harm to them, because we don't have the right to take away, clean water, the ability for medicines and foods, and freedom.
And the quality of life for those generations that precede us. They are to come. Not precede us, but to come.
And to provide that knowledge to our youth.
This is what's interesting, because as you talked about the braid, and I'm not sure, I didn't know, I'm sure many of my listeners didn't know that braid has that significance. And when you were talking about it, it registered inside on a soul level, those spiritual metaphysical principles, mind, body, and soul, always interacting on this plane. And the 7 strands, that's for the previous generations, as well as the coming generations, as well as the elders of the grandfather knowledge, all that to be combined. Those are the 7 chakras that are now opened into the human consciousness. And I think, oh my goodness, the 7 days of the week. So we could continue on to all those qualities. And the sacred geometry or sacred mathematics, still it's all encoded from God Creator. Whether we're using digital age, which we think we're so technologically advanced now, but it's devoid of any spiritual connection, which has been the problem. But it's important that those two rise together. But I love the knowledge you just shared with the braid of sweetgrass. And I have one, some people may have it in their homes, and now they know some of the significance and also of the braid. And I remembered when like I said, in our household, we were not allowed to the girls were not allowed to cut their hair until they were of age, 18, and then you had to, because it was trendy Western way. And I remember having to wear the braids, and because nobody else had the braids, I remember I would take the 2 braids and wind them around each other in the back and pin them in my hair, but at least I had them. And it was an important part of again, my development, spiritual knowledge fitting in Western world as we have to, and then helping to process what the soul promises life, our soul purpose, our soul mission, your continuation of your grandparents' work, and the Algonquin First Nations work, as you said, for generations. It's not just to say, okay, we had a good time here, we're out of here, we used up everything, see ya, because those generations to come should have a quality of life, not just a semblance of a bit of life and whatever's tattered and left, but a quality life and a greater quality of life. And it is what you're saying, the Algonquin First Nations is promoting as well throughout the youth. Excellent.
Yes, very well spoken. Yeah, and so our ancestors, we know through archaeological evidence that they occupied National's capital region, which is based around the Ottawa River, known as the Kitchissippi, which is the Big or Great River.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a vast amount of Algonquin traditional hunting territory that has been basically taken over since
Yes.
European contact.
Aren't they
And
called the Crown Lands, owned by the Crown of England?
yeah, exactly, which is nothing but a sole corporation,
Mm-hmm.
which is a dead thing. It's part of what I have learned to
When
is
you say Soul Corporation, you mean SOLE.
yes, exactly. And what I've learned is that well, Canada is nothing but a corporation.
Correct. Same for the United States. It's correct.
Yes.
Most people do not know, and most Americans do not know. Perhaps 0.05% of Americans recognize this knowledge, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And so throughout history, since say 1763, the Royal Proclamation stated that, well, King George III stated that, Crown lands would be, or First Nation lands would be met with approval from the Crown and the First Nations occupying the region to gather and then give approval for the settlement of that land. But it's never been acknowledged until now. So basically, Canada operates off of, doing things and then asking for forgiveness later kind of deal. But we have this whole truth and reconciliation thing going on. But I've learned as well that true forgiveness means not allowing the oppressor to the perpetrator to continue to do harmful action. And again, that's me coming back to the whole etymology of the word nice for Canadian citizens.
The interesting quality is for North Americans that may not recognize the Aboriginal, it's called here instead of Native American. In the States, we always use Native American. That suppression of knowledge has been greater in the United States. They have no clue of that history, a lot of it, unless they venture on the almost unheard of, like I said, reservations. It's not in their lexicon, it's not in their thoughts or thinking. Here in Canada, it is great because of all the lands they call conservation areas, and because of the greater preponderance of Native American culture and its traditions continuing. Not that they don't in the US, but the suppression has been harder or greater, I believe, because it's not even discussed on anybody's mind. It's what's on my iPhone and that's it, which is sad, okay, because we're all interconnected. In other words, the Native American culture in the US and the Aboriginal Native American culture in Canada is all connected.
That's right. And it's occulted knowledge, basically, our history, the history of First Nations peoples. And it's occulted for a reason, because basically First Nation individuals, their culture, or more so philosophy, because culture is more, again, a belief system. It even has that root word in it, cult.
Very good.
But Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. But we're bringing up great points, and we want to get through it a lot. That's excellent. What
Oh,
ends up
sorry,
happening is the
occulted.
culture. Go ahead.
Yeah, occulted. So because it's about the indigenous worldview is more so about the collective and spiritual well-being versus more so the Western worldview, which is more based upon the individual and materialistic need. And so if you look at today, we need to align ourselves again with those natural law principles. Principles
Bingo.
from Latin principia, meaning first, foremost, or leading.
Yes.
And so, those principles are discoverable in nature, just like, physical laws exist, like gravity, inertia, thermodynamics. Spiritual laws exist as well. And just because we can't see them doesn't mean they don't exist.
Thank you.
So again, outside of the five senses that we can perceive, we also teach that we have intuition, which is our sixth sense, which is heart-based intelligence, which we are all born neutral for the most part. There are some people that have rare instances of brain injury and things like that, but we're all conditioned, just like computers are able to be conditioned or
Yes.
programmed.
Yes. And they have
And
been programmed. Go ahead.
yeah, and so again, a lot of people are not taught the proper knowledge, because once you have poor quality going into a system, that the processing of that information is going to be a negative output onto the screen
Yes.
or the real life. So basically, that's all part of the fictional realm.
That's
So
great.
again, there's only the physical realm, the spiritual realm, and the fictional realm is basically everything that comes from our imaginations that isn't true,
Correct.
that comes from fear. And so our ancestors knew that the universe was always changing. If you look at the etymology of the word universe, uni, one, and that first word coming from vertare, which is to turn, which means basically that one thing turning, changing.
Yes.
And so our language and our culture again is based upon nature and it's and acknowledging that the universe is interconnected just like a web. And so the principle of cause and effect is totally enforced by nature.
It's interesting because at this time, I know you're a mixture, I'm a mixture, and I notice more mixtures are abounding in the world because, just like you said, you took the extrapolation from your father's Western thought and his background, and your mother's First Nation thought and her background, and this combination gets a whole or holistic look at both sides to perhaps correct our erroneous patterns, our erroneous thinking, our erroneous intentions as we get ready to enter this new age, but it takes work. And so with the First Nations, Algonquin First Nations and many other First Nations around the North American continent, the whole point is to pass the knowledge on for generations so it does not die, does not dissipate. It must continue on because this was our flaw in humankind, forgetting this integral part of our nature. It's as if you wanted humans to exist without a heart. That's what's happening. And they can't. We can't take out the heart, set it aside, and just use the brain. The computer will never really know how to nurture a child, not really know how to send an unseen energy of love and devotion into a seed, into the soil, into the air, into the land, or into others. A computer will never, and that's all left brain dominant. And what we find is this fight we're in right now of left and right brain, or the fight of the Western traditional knowledge with this new influence of all this spirituality, which is what all of Earth must come to be in this new cycle or this new age upon us. There is no way it can help. So you see this war happening with those that are of the left brain technological thinking, trying to wage their domination even harder now, especially in these next few months. We've seen it in the last few, to stop or suppress this spiritual awareness. And this collective quality is happening. And hence, that's why they have people around the world 6 feet apart. The heart actually, the soul of each being or each human is connected. At the back of the heart, it's called the seed atom. That's where the connection exists. And what is happening is the Earth herself, Dr. Schumann, or the scientist Schumann, knew in 1950 that he found that the resonance of the Earth is at 7.83 hertz. He found that the human heart beats at 7.83 hertz. Well, in her evolution and her growth, Earth has been popping up to 30, 40, 60, 100 over in the last few days, and then going back down a little bit. And we feel it as well as the Earth, producing that growth to this greater spiritual awareness that the technological world is trying to stop or trying to block. So that 6 feet around that they keep wanting us to social distance, this new lexicon that has come in to our thought and our talk and our speech, is because the energetic field of the human body extends 3 feet on either side. So for 6 feet, they don't want us even to touch those energies that people don't know of that exist. The auric energetic field that they most can't see, but they would if they work on it. They would if they open to that awareness. But literally, that impacts each person you walk by within 6 feet. So they put that mandate out. Yes, for the physical quality of their machinery and satellites, it can't picture and pinpoint and as they can, that's the physical. But on the spiritual level, they want to block that connection. So we wouldn't grow and know and share that knowledge, even without us speaking. When we walk by one another, we're sharing that knowledge. So you're saying at this time, this awareness coming, those 6 senses that we were not, we taught about in school that there's 6, and then they stopped discussing it. And you're saying that's all part of the natural quality that humans have or hold. Yes?
Yeah. So like all this 6 feet stuff is all part of jurisdiction. Again, man believing that he creates what is the difference between right and wrong. But jurisdiction, juris meaning law, and then dictio meaning to speak. So to speak the law, again, coming just from moral relativism. And again, coming almost from a solipsistic point of view, solipsism, that basically the belief in that we're disconnected, that whatever you do doesn't matter. And it's
solipsism, again, Latin-based word that yes, go ahead.
It's a self, when really we have to respect the laws of nature, again, looking within ourselves to see if our actions are aligning with those.
Yes.
Or not. And again, to change our behavior to be as much loving and sharing of true knowledge as possible. Because when we respect ourselves, when we respect the laws of nature, then we can evolve. Respect, coming from Latin re, the prefix, meaning and spec means from Latin as well, meaning to look at. So to look back at, right? To look back at oneself. And so again, if we don't do that, then there are consequences for our behavior.
That consequences people don't understand. We have free will on the planet, and understanding the consequences, you have free will to make your choices, but you will experience the consequences of those choices. That's by Ayn Rand, who did the Atlas Shrugged and the Fountainhead. And it's important that people understand, even like I said, the great novelists and writers of our century are trying to share and to teach But to this very day, we're still not realizing it. We're still not understanding it. So I'm proud of those that do, and to open to this thinking, and to open, because that's how we progress. That's the only way we're going to progress. And you talked about, especially Canada, still under Crown law, under the UK, and there are things going on there that are amazing. Now the UK, who we all speak the English language, unfortunately 2/3 of the world population does, based on their colonization processes that went on from the 1400s on. But what happens is they are now one of the top illiterate nations in the world in their educational system. One of the top. I was in shock, because they too, the powers that be, the ones in charge at this time, the technocracy, I'll call it, who wants to get rid of that sense that we have, that sixth sense, that soul connection, has predominated. So even in a country where that language was strong, now they can't even think, read, process it properly. They're at the top 1 or 2 in the world that is the most illiterate in the world today. I was in shock. That was based on a documentary that was done to show what has happened, what is processed. But that is a process of literally planned suppression. So those that they feel that they are in power can continue this great suppression. And as the audience, I'll gather them to look behind me for a second at the beautiful site. That is from the Algonquin First Nations website or page, but with the lake as well as the snow and the trees and the pine and the sunset there, just moving aside for a second. But that beauty has an impact. It's just not a tree. It's just not a lake. It's just not snow. They're all from God Creator. They all have an energy, and all has an impact on us spiritually as well as physically and mentally. It's not just a tree. I can't go by a tree without feeling the trees. I really do always have. Plants, I'll end up talking to the plants because they have an energy that we can sense or feel, and deserve as much respect as each human does. And I find that today in the Western way, or the Western way of thinking, this problem of domination for resources, power, and greed is way out of balance. So Mother Earth in her natural normal cycle is correcting this imbalance today. So Willy, I want to ask you, where can people find out more about the Algonquin First Nations, or your work as a curator for the First Nations Algonquin, the museum? Where could they find more information, may I ask?
Yeah, totally.
Natural law, either way.
Yeah, algonquinsipigwakingon.ca.
Okay, and what we're going to do is I'm going to have to put that down in the link so they can click on that link. And so he says it so beautifully and richly and easily, and it's something new to our mouths, so it's difficult for many of us. But
yeah, and the algonquinway.ca as well. We have a online dictionary there that people can go and learn some First Nation words.
okay.
For instance, mishkiki, which is the Algonquin word for medicine,
Mhm.
which actually translates to strength of the earth.
Ah,
And so again, all those trees and the vegetation and the water and everything behind you, it's all medicine.
that's right.
It's for us.
That's right. And if people want to go back to portions of the Bible that are correct, that haven't been extrapolated by greedy, powerful councils, it states, upon the earth I will plant, I will give you every seed, everything that you need to nurture self. And I believe in the balance in mind, body, and soul. And I haven't even purchased aspirin since I was 20. I believe only in the natural sources, the natural medicines that the divine has put forth through the herbs use, plant use, and plant intake for our highest ability. People don't know, Willy, as you mentioned, that even plants, it's the DNA of plants is 99%. The blood, our makeup of our blood is the same as chlorophyll that runs through the plants. And every one of those trees that people see are producing more oxygen for us to breathe. So we have to understand, we have to learn to be better in symbiosis with earth and all parts and species of the earth, but especially one another. And so at this point of the show, this is the time when I give my gift back to you, Willie, to give your time and your knowledge that you've given us. And give us the Algonquin word for knowledge again, please.
The Algonquin word for knowledge? Oh, sorry, there isn't one.
Okay. Wisdom. Is there one for
Word
wisdom?
for art. Yes, there is.
That
I
would
don't
be the
know
word.
off the top of my mind, though.
Don't worry. Okay, but literally what they can do is go to the algonquinway.ca and look up wisdom.
Yes, yeah, I should know that for sure.
Perfect.
I've
You've got
learned
so
that,
much on you.
yeah, that everybody says, knowledge is power, but, wisdom is actually the application of right knowledge.
Yes.
So, using that knowledge to create change for the better.
Exactly. So we want to let the audience know that they can go to that site, and I'll leave again the links at the bottom. But just so you'll realize, he just opened up a doorway for you to go through. Just take a look and open your thinking and attitude and understand what he is saying with his beautiful calm and beautiful caring and concern is we all need to look at this, be it Aboriginal, be it First Nation, be it Native American, be it world citizen. We need to take a look at ourselves to be a responsible race for not only the earth, but for generations to come. And this is the time in the show that I was mentioning that I give back as a thank you, as a miigwech to you for being a guest on my show today. I am a professional psychic, highly respected in my work for what I do. There's quite a big difference in how I do it. I've been psychic since very early childhood. That gift of prophecy as well as psychic ability is something my soul has earned and brought for the intention of the highest benefit and good to the soul growth of humankind. I am psychic, clairvoyant, clairaudient. That means I see and hear, in fact, all the clairs, clairgoustians, clairsentients, all the list of clairs. But I used them all, but I was raised in an academic-based family that wouldn't discuss any of this. So I learned to use everything from the Oxford dictionaries and the encyclopedias to literally further that academic knowledge base, but it has kept me with a critical mind. So I am a hard and fast skeptic to this day. I love proof. So when I study not just superficially, everybody does a few hours here, that's it, and they know it. It's hours and hours and years of deep layer upon layer of study. And that was for the benefit to humankind and my greater soul growth and awareness. So in my reading is never an opinion or a belief or a theory. I won't even say, as I said earlier in the show, I would never say or espouse it unless it's real. And I want to do on the air for you a mini reading of sorts of what I do in the hour readings for any clients that I have all over the world. My clients are celebrities, doctors, lawyers. They stay clients for many years in this work because of this awareness or this understanding for their soul's benefit or for their soul growth or understanding. So what ends up happening, as I try to straighten this up, what ends up happening is it is for their growth, and they always have free will to apply this information or not. I only use the tarot, astrology, numerology, palmistry, graphology, advanced astrology in the highest ways, evolutionary astrology, those pinpoints, sacred astrology, spiritual astrology, to confirm what I'm picking up psychically. I actually see and hear the person's guide / guardian angel because I wanted proof years ago before the trend. I asked the universe, look, this is someone's life. You got to give me some more proof. And it began to happen before it was even heard or discussed in books and movies and TV as it is today. That guide knows you so much better than I. I just pay good, humble, rapt attention. So for the mini reading, Willie, I will address one specific question on the air. They're going to tell you the answer to your specific question, what other areas of the life it will affect. And as always, you have free will to apply that information or not. So today, for me, your question will be?
Whether, living in on the First Nation and having, status privileges is even a right that I have by surrendering rights, or is it based upon, the original treaties that we've created?
Okay, that's two questions. So we're going to go one or the other, part A or part B.
I guess part A, yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that question, let's phrase it so it's answerable by yes, no, or maybe, then they'll tell you how it affects you. So how are we going to phrase that again, please? Will they be given the rights that they so deserve? Will it be actually shown legally, literally, or whether it should be pursued? Which one would you like to ask?
Yeah, whether it should be actually pursued.
Okay, I want you to uncross arms and ankles. That tends to shut down human energy, kind of like putting a battery backwards in something. It won't work as well. All right, so I want you now, non-verbally in your mind, to address that question exactly that way to the divine universe, not me. We're just human. We think we know everything with the 2% of the brain we really use, but we don't. They do know everything, and this spiritual connection or guidance is what I hear and see. And again, remember, you have free will to apply it. In your mind, non-verbally now, if you close your eyes to get that better connection to the divine God creator, if you'd like, you're going to ask, would it be best for the greatest, highest good of all to continue pursuing the legal matter or the way that you're choosing to implement the First Nations works right now? Think it to the divine. I want you to feel in your heart chakra, how good it would feel to you if you got the answer you wanted. Asking the divine as I shuffle for confirmation only. And please tell me when you want me to stop. Just say the words, stop shuffling.
Stop.
Thank you, 1 second. And people don't realize, but there's a divine guidance that was originally intended behind the tarot. It's to open the God's eye, pineal gland, pituitary, to the divine universe, not for humankind to misuse. So it was blocked or stopped, and it must be utilized in this highest way that you hear me say. Never in the way you can't just get somebody, oh, we're reading the name on the bottom. That is not it. Each card in the tarot of 78 cards has over 24,000 meanings. And it is meant just for the reader itself through their divine guidance on this process. Oh my goodness, the answer is yes. On the path that you said, it's yes, it's best to continue in the way that you're doing so. They said they have to write it. It is by law they have to write it. And they mean write it, R-I-G-H-T, and then they show me W-R-I-T-E. That's what they just show me, they tell me. Not only that, Willie, it shows me on the pathway headed, there's a gentleman spearheading this, who could be dark-haired, dark-eyed, tan to olive to brown skin, not necessarily the look, but I do know this gentleman has Taurus or Virgo or Capricorn strong in his birth chart, his sun or moon arising. He knows his stuff, he's got the determination, he has this ability to take it forward. It also shows me there could be one woman around that believes, don't go do this. She could be Pisces or Cancer or Scorpio, her sun, moon arising. She could be, she could even be an elder, believe it or not, one of the grandmothers. But it shows me here that she's basically saying, don't bother, just live and let live, that kind of thing. But not, they said, it's to detract from this. It also shows me on the pathway headed that someone recently passed away that was integral in making this move forward, okay? And when someone passes, we have a finite time in these bodies on the earth. The soul, we have one soul that lives forever. And as I said earlier, we get in these cute bodies and genders, but it's for our soul growth, awareness, and to leave the world better than when we came. And it shows someone that has recently passed on is asking for the best blessing for this particular thing to happen the way you would like to see it for the First Nation, Willie. I'm not kidding. So they know we need all the help we can get down here. So they're so happy when they get to go. They graduated from Earth School 101, at least this level. And literally they're asking the divine universe, source, great father. It's important, great spirit. It's important that they're asking that we are given the blessings because they know we need all the help we can get. It's better than anything they could leave us in a will that was tangible. This extra special blessing is being offered on this to write it and to write it. It also shows me there's a gentleman that's integral to this who could be fire sign or air dominant. Aquarius, Libra, Gemini is air, and fire is Sag, Leo, Aries. His sun and moon rising, I believe it could be you, by the way. And it shows me has the brilliance and intelligence that he's brought in this lifetime to help pursue this in the highest way possible, this connection. It also shows me the divine universe's input, God creator's input on this question right now. It's showing me there will be some sort of commitment or treaty. I heard treaty first, but I heard some sort of commitment or arrangement. They're going to come to a contractual agreement on this. I heard them say, yes, they will. They said they have to at this time. They must. So the perpetrators, I don't care if it's been history, it was their great-grandfather that did it, doesn't matter. It needs to be corrected now before the earth goes to this plane, to assuage literally the karma from all their succeeding ancestors and what has happened that wronged this situation. I'm kind of shocked at the answer. I would have said, well, let's just keep it the way it is, let's keep a little harmony like this one woman is doing. But no, it shows me here there will be a contracted arrangement made that will work effectively. I'm not kidding. It also shows me right around the time or just before, there may be a little bit of malaise or depression about this because it hasn't happened. But trust in the divine universe, trust in the great spirit, trust in source, force, all there is to bring this about. Every time we get depressed about it, and I can understand why the depression. Depression is given to humans to go through for about an hour. That's what it's given. It's supposed to be a tool that we're supposed to use to go into why we're depressed, to go in and clean out non-constructive attitudes, choices of emotions, get rid of non-constructive patterns of thinking and perspectives, get rid of them and come out within an hour with a better plan. But no, we stay for days and weeks. We let it kill our life spirit. We let it dog us down. We do things that are harmful to mind, body, and soul because we're depressed. And the negative side is hoping for that to happen. Look, we threw them off. They're off track. Let them stay that way. Look, they're not doing anything. They're laying in the corner laughing, the negative side of this, because they've stolen life force that's vital. We all have only a finite amount of life force, each one of us. And so what ends up happening is they steal it every time we linger longer. So it shows me there's a tendency for all to become depressed because it didn't happen. Lighten up. Keep, again, working toward that a contractual agreement to make it come into play, to make it into action, not just an intention, but an action. And once things are written down and signed, believe it or not, I know what has happened in the past, believe it or not, it is enforced through divine law. It exists two-dimensionally, and then will manifest in the third dimension that we're in right now. It shows me it's now that you start to plant seeds, they say, for future generations. I'm telling you exactly as I'm hearing this. It also shows me on the pathway you're headed, Willy, you yourself, if you stay balanced, mind and body and soul, raising your spiritual awareness to match your high intelligence and your physicality to match, you, Willy, will achieve recognition amongst your friends, your peer, the public, or the media. This is what your soul promised. And by the way, on a side note, past this, did you just get a vehicle or car? Or are you talking about getting a vehicle or car, Willy?
A home, a
Okay.
house.
Talking about a car or vehicle, I want you to watch and check your right front tire, please, to make sure there's not a low rise or a leak or something of this nature. A car or vehicle represents how we move along our path in life. Okay, so that's why we don't buy a new one every week, and the one we have represents ourselves. So watch that on your right front as well. And it also shows me a gentleman that you may come in contact with either in the last 3 weeks or the next 3 weeks, could be Libra, strong in his birth chart, his sun or moon are rising. He could have had a problem in the path with caffeine, sugar, drugs, or alcohol. It's deleterious to his system. It will not work right. And I'm aware of the one lacking Asian molecule. I can't even handle the smell of a beer. It knocks me sick. I get drunk, so I can't even handle. But it's important here because it shows me on the pathway headed, this man may come in to help you to achieve your highest and best on this thing, on exactly what you ask about. It also shows me on the pathway headed, you've got lots of ideas and lots of plans that haven't been put, they're not ruined. Write them down, Willy. Go to the dollar store and get one of those little books or journals. Put down a list of what comes to mind that really comes from the divine universe through you for others to benefit from. Once it's written, it starts to manifest into the life. And so it shows me they've given you a lot of ideas, and it's important that you implement these for the benefit of many others. So on the path you're headed, the answer is yes, continue the pursuit. It is planting seeds for future generations that will be determined by this pursuit. So this is extremely important. There's people don't understand there's personal karma and there's cultural karma and national or nations karma as well. Each country karma. So it's a big into the microcosm and the macrocosm of things. It's on the smallest level and affects the largest level or the outcome throughout the cosmos as well. Willy, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Please, for people to go to the website, the Algonquin Way, I think it's called .ca, algonquinway.ca. I'll put the links below so people can see as well. But I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on today. Miigwech.
Miigwech.
Miigwech to you. And I want to wish the audience all the best.
Much of your